girls start right away, and I don't think anybody last year which is good. They need that way, but it can also attenuate things, right? So they do a good job of keeping that connection going. Yeah. So it is.
Strong. You
Well, and the good thing is we have one society. Other campuses, it can be very fractured. Yeah, and they, I think that they also, that they're just good leadership. But one of the things that's interesting that was kind of somebody said something, our students, it's all relative. For them, law is still a lucrative career because they really do better than where they start, right? If you're an upper middle class kid, it may not be a lucrative career anymore.
Let me mute it.
You have other options.
All right, our cameras are on. Everybody back to their seats. Yes. Okay. All right.
I'll shoot you an email Monday. She'll either say, he's in work.
All right.
I'll try.
Everybody's all set?
I'll give you a status though.
Yeah.
It's just because they went to junior high school and they stayed in touch.
I think everything else will be a success.
We never call someone like this. Call him.
Welcome to Reservation Response Conferencing. Thank you. If you are the leader, please enter your leader PIN. To start or join your conference, you will now be placed in conference. To mute your line, press *6. To unmute, press #6. After joining the call, to record the conference for those who may miss this call, or for future playback, press *2.
All right. Anybody on the line now? Anyone, any members of the public? Any, Judge Beckton? All right. All right, we're going to start. Thank you so much. I sat in on parts of a lot of these committee meetings, and everybody seemed to be very engaged and very getting lots of good ideas. So let us start. We're opening the co-op afternoon session. Is there any member of the public who is on the line or present here in this room? Anyone who would like to make any comment? All right. Seems there is none, so let's proceed to our committee reports. We're going to be each talking about our year-end accomplishments and outcomes and the 2018 strategic plan updates. Let's first hear from the early education, civics education section from Mark Sheff.
Thank you, Judge. The Early Education Committee has 4 ongoing programs, tasks. One being the essay contest. Thank you to Marvin Giselle for putting together the last 2 essay topics. We also have an ongoing program, Know Your Rights, trying to get DAs and public defenders and anyone else in the criminal field to go to our partnership academies to provide information on the criminal justice system. And we also have updated Want to Be a Lawyer brochure. At least I think we did that. Did that get updated? Oh, okay. We're going to put some more recent public figures on the brochure because apparently the older ones were too out of it.
They're really old.
New generation, next generation. So those are the ongoing programs. In essence, is now the time to talk about our 5th task that we proposed to the council adding a 5th task. Ruthie actually mentioned it earlier in her reports earlier today. The genesis of this idea is that diversity and elimination of bias and inclusion in the legal system begins with education. I'm sure all of you have seen different reports about people unable to name a justice of the California Supreme Court, even what is a California Supreme Court. To address that has to be done through civics education. And there is no better way than our partnership academies, who are dealing with at-risk youth, and to encourage them into the legal profession is to educate them on that. And after some back and forth within the committee and discussion of different ideas, we'd like to propose that as part of a 5th task for this committee is to not create programming, but to partner up with, for example, the ADA and the Constitutional Rights Foundation. They have are developing programs in civic education. In particular, CRF has materials for civic engagement activities, and that we make these available and encourage our partnership academies to use these programs to get involved in civics education and encouraging them in the participation of that process. If the council were to approve this task, we would then start kind of finalizing specifically how we would go about it, but it would be through the Law Academy since they are our natural partner and it would be a good starting point. We are not intending to create curriculum or recreate the wheel. There are many, many fine, outstanding organizations out there that already do this kind of work. We would like to kind of take some of the best ones that we think are suitable for our academies and then apply, make them available to them to implement in the coming year.
Thanks very much. Any questions from Mark? All right. So do we have a proposal that we are going to, we have a proposal that's been set out by Mark. Do we have any discussion we want to have before we vote?
Can I just add one thing? Donna Hershkowitz, but nobody's on the phone. I just wanted to mention, and you may want to think about instead of or in addition to sort of reaching out to the ABA and others, civics education, civics engagement is a significant priority of California's current Chief Justice, and she has been working on for several years now on a civics education initiative, developing civics education curriculum, and so it may be that it makes sense for the partnership to be with the Chief Justice and the work that the Chief is doing on civics education.
I understand that we're aware of that program. I don't think anything concrete has come out yet. Ruthie had also indicated that the ABA is also working on it. We're obviously open to the different programs, but right now I know that CRF does have specific programming materials available, so we can at least start with that, and then of course build on that.
Maybe we could leave it open-ended in terms of
Right.
CRF and or any other organizations that are willing to and able to partner with us effectively.
Just follow up a little bit too. I know with respect to the judges, Judge Nye in Sacramento, there's a videotape and other things that they have where they're going around to various schools and others teaching kids about civics education. So there is already a developed curriculum and training materials. And then in addition, as Donna mentioned, the Chief Justice's program, it has been an emphasis of hers for since she has been chief.
So there are a lot of resources. So we're going to vote on the proposal. Do we all raise your hand who are in favor of the proposal? Any votes against? Any abstentions? Vote passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to the college law school. Oh, yes.
Can I ask a question in terms of promoting the partnership academies statewide? Is anything happening on
Oh, yes. We have some committee members who will be taking a look at what we have. We also, I don't want to say we kind of snuck into the communications meeting, but we discussed that. We raised that issue.
We were asked to do that.
What the communications committee had suggested that we have the juniors and seniors from the partnership academies go to the middle schools that perhaps feed in and give presentations there. And I think that would probably be the most effective, immediate way of addressing that. So we'll take a look at that in the coming weeks.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Mark. All right, moving on to college and law school. Kelly?
Yes, so first, with regard to law school demographics and diversity metrics, we have put together a template. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet at this point that has information on all of the ABA accredited law schools and their percentage of total minorities on the campus with regard to student body population, also with regard to faculty and administrators, what their minority percentage is. We have information on bar passage rates, attrition rates, conditional scholarships, whether they've been reduced or eliminated when a student enters with a scholarship, as well as employment rates. So we're going to have a call in early December where we kind of try to maybe narrow down the Excel spreadsheet a bit before we try to get this put on California law. So that is almost complete. With regard to bar passage, about a year ago, Catalina had put together a survey of questions to ask law students about bar passage and what resources are being offered at the various law schools. And so we're going to pull from that survey to create a broader survey about what services are offered on law school campuses, as well as what are other resources that are available to students off campus, free resources, maybe regional resources. We're trying to get to the bottom of what is working for students. And so in our call in early December, we're going to have this survey ready so that we can give it out to students after the February bar that passes. So that is the goal, to kind of see, markers of how well they thought they did, as well as to hear what resources have been available so that we can start really honing in on what is working. With regard to the 2+2+3 pathway to law, we have had trainings on implicit bias and stereotype threat at the Pathway Summit in February, as well as at the class trainings in June. And so the council is going to create surveys for the faculty who teach or who are in these trainings to make sure that they are effective, as well as that they are bringing this information into their classrooms. We're also going to have student evaluations created for before they take a capstone class of social justice, to check in with the students, see what they know about implicit bias and stereotype threat before they take the class, and then we'll have them fill out another survey after the class to determine how much they're learning and if we are creating an impact. So yet again, at our December meeting, we'll have those surveys ready to disperse at the February Pathway Summit. And then with regard to the interactive curriculum, the Schultz-Zedek factors, we have a work group call coming up soon that we have a doodle put together to schedule that next call, but we have been looking at the 26 effective factors to lawyering, and we're honing in on 8 that we're going to create curriculum for, so that should be coming up soon. And then the continued relationship between California law and COAP. We have been helping them with professional development and just the overall partnership, so that is ongoing.
Any questions? So let's move on to legal profession. There's a new proposal, the leadership initiative. So, Melissa.
Angela, did you want to talk about the new initiative first?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Nice try, though.
Well, I'll just give an update on the corporate council. Oh, sorry. I'll give an update on the corporate council project that we're working on, and then I'll turn over to Angela for the other ongoing initiatives. So on the pilot in-house council focus group, we have Gary has done initial outreach to a small group of general counsels in the Los Angeles area who have indicated initial interest in participating in our focus groups. We have put together sort of a topical outline of issues that we'd like to cover during the focus groups, and are in the process of finalizing a letter to go out to the general counsels. requesting their participation, as well as sort of a written survey of some very targeted questions that they can fill out during the session to try to get some metrics on whether certain types of programming are implemented at their, in their particular legal departments. So we're working on finalizing those with the aim of holding the focus groups sort of in Q1 of 2018 and then in Q2 to be able to sort of compile the results into sort of a report and some recommended next steps. One thing that we discussed was a way to potentially incentivize the GCs to participate either by offering some sort of recognition from co-op or something similar to that. So the committee's considering that as well.
Yeah, so we wanted to just report that we're going to follow up on the walk the talk package that was developed and was taken around to various settings, and Gary was good enough to sort of step up and say that he would fill us in on the kind of feedback he got when he got into some of the discussions and spaces where this video was presented, and we want to just kind of close the loop on that and make sure that everybody understands what's available and put it out there again, especially right now, given what's going on with gender and interest in implicit bias and interest generally in diversity growing. So that's going to happen. Also, the GLA program, just to clarify what that's going to be about, is that we're going to just have continuing conversation with the director at DFEH. Pat has kind of initiated that, and it sounds like what our role will be is to just make sure people understand and know about how to apply for the one-year fellowship that's paid to work in the legal division of the DFEH. The leadership development piece that we're going to be thinking about, Rod has generously agreed to give input to our creating something that we might call the COAF Law Lab, Lawyers Lab. And this is a different kind of leadership program in that we're not going to actually call it a leadership program. We're just going to call it a lab because it's kind of an experimental space that we want to try out. But the focus is going to be on professional and personal development, and it's going to be targeted to public interest and public sector lawyers who are going to be given a chance to build their career skills, knowledge, and career options. It's an initiative that's going to bring more focus to leadership development by providing lawyers who are often in solo or very small practice settings and don't get invited or don't have the resources to participate in these other leadership programs that you hear about or in the big firm leadership programs. And these are, the interest here is because of the choice that these young, and we want to target young lawyers. We're not interested in the 7 to 10 year out lawyer. We're interested in the 2 to 3 year out lawyer who's showing some real interest in connecting their law practice to community and public interest. So that's the idea, and how that will take shape, we'll have to talk with you further about at our next meeting, but that's the idea.
So, all right. So we have a proposal from our legal profession committee, and is there any discussion you'd like to have before we do a vote? Thank you very much. But let's. So everybody who's in favor of adding this proposal to our programs, please raise your hand. All right. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstention? Any abstentions? All right, so that's passed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Melissa. All right. Now, the Judicial Committee.
Okay. With respect to judicial, we will continue to do judicial appointments and workshops. 7 were done last time, 2 remaining that weren't done. We've added some more locations. We'll try to do one in Orange County, probably again in San Francisco, and some of the other counties. We have also been in touch with the governor's office about trying to do an appointments workshop for specific constituents, including LGBT, women, persons of color, and attorneys with disabilities. So we're planning to do that program next year. We hope we get it done by the end of this year, but scheduling isn't going to allow that. We're hopeful we can get it done in January. And I'm just going to give some highlights. In addition, one of the things we're talking about doing in terms of training for review entities is to invite the county bar associations, the judicial evaluations committees to come in for training and have them undergo the same kind of training that we provide to Jenny commissioners, so that they too can try to ferret out their own implicit bias issues as they evaluate at the local level candidates for judicial appointments. We're planning to try to do those, complete those in February and March. One in Southern California, one of them in Northern California, probably at the state bar offices. So I don't know if this is co-op, state bar is training them. With respect to another project that's been on the bar board of public education regarding the value of judicial diversity, we are planning to try to coordinate with the deans of law schools to try to go to law schools and speak with law students there about their long-term plan to come on the bench to discuss with them the need for a diverse judiciary. And that's something that we hope to accomplish in the next year. We're not doing much on the Judicial Summit report. Judge Beckman has that aspect of it. So let's see, and then we will obviously do our Jenny training as well. We will train the members of the Jenny Commission, and we'll work with Holly to do our first training in August, would be the plan in terms of our calendar. As you all know, this is the governor's last year. 2018 will be the governor's last year. There are still probably close to 100 vacancies around the state. Vacancies will be filled fast and furiously before the governor leaves office. Technically, he can still fill until the day a new governor gets sworn in January 2019, I guess.
Although the last 90 days, he doesn't have to consult Jenny.
Yes, exactly. So we need to encourage people to get their applications in early, as early in the year as possible.
I'm telling everybody, if you don't have yours in already, it's really going to be difficult.
Yeah. And we're saying, really, if you don't have it in, we're saying, March, if you haven't gotten it in by March, you can just forget it. So
I said that last year.
Yeah. So, but the good news is that there are a number of vacancies on the trial court as well as on the appellate court. So this is a wonderful opportunity to increase diversity. The governor can still make history with a number of appointments. We continue to tell him he can make history by putting the first African-American woman on the First District Court of Appeal. He can still do that, as well as the Sixth District Court of Appeal. So we encourage him to, but we do to make those history-making appointments. But we also need to make sure that we get a good pool of applicants, because that is what we hear. The pool needs to be increased. So we are really planning, and then the other thing that we will be doing in terms of our judicial appointments and mentoring workshops, probably maybe toward the end of the year, we'll be working more on trying to do mentoring workshops, trying to get people ready for the new governor coming in, to encourage them to start readying their applications, getting them ready to go as soon as the new governor takes office, to start flooding the governor's office with a flood of applications. That, I think, are the highlights. Obviously, the other things will be updating the slide, those kinds of things, which are ongoing projects. That, I think, is it.
I think one of the things that I'm emphasizing to many people who are coming to me now and wanting help with judicial applications, if you haven't applied now, a good thing to do is to take a look at the application and think of yourself as positioning yourself for the next governor, because that application is going to be very similar, because it's easier for them to do it that way than anything else. And so take a look at that. And if you were filling this out, what would be missing? Are you missing pro bono? Are you missing community activities? Are you missing bar activities? What exactly are you missing leadership? And think about saying, okay, you know what? I've now got a couple of years to really fill that in so that I am an excellent candidate when it comes down to it. So we have a lot of work to do for the next government as well.
And while we didn't discuss this specifically too, it would be good for us to see if we can work with the Judicial Council in terms of the toolkit that they're using, that they're updating for the presiding judges, to try to see if we can do. We continue to urge the presiding judges to emphasize diversity on the trial courts, and to ask the governor and remind the governor as well, send me some diverse appointments to our various courts. We can get that, and then also to make sure that judges on the trial courts are getting the variety of experience that they need to make themselves attractive, particularly for elevation. Very often, some of the ethnic judges get sort of stuck in some assignments, and they can't get into what is considered to be those assignments that make them more attractive and when they get ready to get elevated. Years ago, one of the recommendations from the Judicial Summit was that the presiding judges open up the opportunities to judges of color. Let them get into the civil assignments and to other assignments that the governor looks at in terms of the variety of experience that he would want. Still, it's always been a he, that he would want in a candidate for elevation to a Court of Appeal or to the Supreme Court.
And leadership opportunities of court as well. You know, supervising judges, site judges, that type of thing.
Sure.
Absolutely. Any discussion, any questions for Judge Becker? All right, thank you. Moving along. So next we have communications, Ireneo.
Thank you, Solly. To expedite my report, I'm going to refer to page 8 of the handout. This is the landscape handout, just the bottom DK in the planning chart. And the first topic there is our outreach and branding efforts. So as many of you know, the last couple of years really made a big push to have co-op branded materials, business cards, working on the website, etc. So to build on the good work we've done, we discussed how for the upcoming state bar admission ceremonies, in a couple of weeks, you know how the state bar results came out last night.
Oh, did they?
Yes. 6% increase in pass rate, 49%.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's been, so the state bar organizes swearing ceremonies in Oakland, Pasadena, throughout the state. And there's a presence of the state bar staff there already, in the admissions offices. And based on my experience with young lawyers, when I was involved there, we would have a table. We don't suggest we have a table, but rather, perhaps we can use the business cards, the brochures that we printed out already, Pat and Donna. I know we discussed this, and thank you, Donna, by the way, for joining us. You've been very helpful in answering all of our questions. So perhaps, if the cost isn't too great, because I think it's already some cost if we were to print out the materials, perhaps we can mail out the little business cards. And because I've been to about a dozen of those swearing ceremonies when I was with CYLA, and everyone's very happy. Parents are there, and they're looking for anything from the state bar to kind of memorialize that day. And so I think that's a great way to kind of inculcate these new attorneys to the diversity mission of the state bar. And to Donna's great point, perhaps we can ask one of the state bar speakers, whether they're on the board of trustees or staff level, when they speak, make a plug for a co-op. I know as a talking point, they're going to discuss the new mission of diversity and inclusion. So we hope to perhaps institutionalize this in the swearing ceremonies, in December coming up, and for those who pass the bar exam. So that's kind of a year-round way for co-op to be relevant and to promote our branding efforts. So Pat, maybe after the meeting we'll discuss this later on. And Judge Puja, you mentioned the law school alumni associations. I know they have their own swearing ceremonies, so I don't know if we'll have enough time by then, but I think each of us are involved at some points with our law school. I know I am UCLA Law School. Helen was one of my teaching fellows. She in contract first year. So maybe that's another way for us to reach out. And I know we discussed that in the context of the WIT channeling efforts. So that's a great way for us to kind of be in constant contact with these stakeholders that are part of the pipeline. The law students, the attorneys, And when they get their first fee statement, then they'll, I won't oppose that. So it's a good way for them to learn more about the good work we're doing early on.
Depends on whether it's an opt-in or opt-out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's one of our proposals, is to just do something like that early on for these new attorneys. Moving on to ABA presence. So we learned how Pat is now the chair of this diversity center. So when we discussed having more of an ABA presence a couple years ago, our main goal was to actually promote California-based diversity initiatives for awards, so that we can kind of be seen as a national leader and a model nationally. So I think with Pat being at the helm of this group, we hope to continue this, and Ruthie as well has been very involved. Collaboration on pipeline projects. I know the Early Education Committee joined us. Thank you for joining us and working on that. A big push that we've been making as a committee the last 2 years has been on using the State Bar website, social media platforms. Rod, thank you for joining us at our last committee meeting, and then with Donna too. We discussed a plan to actually implement this finally, now that we know where we fit. We confirmed that we do want to be part of the mainstream State Bar for now, as far as having kind of being part of the one State Bar concept. So our goal is to have a calendar for social media postings. For example, the first one would be promoting applications for the State Bar commissions and sections that are due on February 5th of 2018. Something as simple as that, that maybe, obviously we've discussed how the heavy hitters in diversity within the State Bar is the Jenny Commission, where we can sit back, co-op, of course, asking for more applicants for our group. I know with the changes in the board of trustee procedures and process, I don't know if we can still do that as well. But
actually, we should talk, because I'm the chair of the Supreme Court's committee.
Yeah. Okay. So, it could be as simple as perhaps, I don't know, once or twice a month, having something on the landing page of the State Bar website, which everyone goes to, calbar.ca.gov. And then, of course, we have our own page that is much easier to find. And I give credit to Rod and to Donna and the staff for having a lot of the photos. I mentioned this in the last meeting. They're very diverse. So people of color at every page throughout the website. And of course, as we know, if you go click on diversity initiatives, co-op is definitely front and center. So the way we would do this is that have a regular posting either on the State Bar website or on the State Bar's Facebook or Twitter page that would just copy a link, and then it would show the pictures there. So it's number one, very easy to do. Second, it's not taking up too much of Pat's time, because I know that was a concern as well before. So I'll work with the committee as far as planning the year to post these relevant items. And of course, for those of you in other committees, we want to promote the fundraising, the new leadership initiatives, things like that we kind of have fresh content, because I think it gets stale if we do that. So that's the plan for now. I mean, we're still thinking in the long run of maybe having our own pages, but I think for now, it's great, to be part of the mainstream State Bar communications platforms. Pipeline, we discussed, Mark discussed the idea that was generated by Hadienka, the mentoring by middle school students, so passing below to the student. I'm going to move on to page 9 of the plan. So Judge Holly, we wanted to see if co-op still wanted to work with the sections. I know in the past you just volunteers and taking this good, Jason.
I think we need to talk to the sections about what help they want.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay. And then going down to collaborating with other support entities, Donna had this great idea, and in light of the Appendix 1 discussion about how the Commission on Access to Justice, how we potentially were going to merge with them, perhaps, in light of how they work on a lot of access to justice issues. So they, I think, set on there more along policy issues, whereas we're kind of the boots on the ground for these issues. But if there's synergies, so Donna said she's going to have lunch next week with the chair of the commission, and so perhaps just explore, if obviously depending on what the full council thinks, of ways that we can work with them in the future. For example, the folks from early education discuss other issues like mass incarceration, other kind of big ideas that maybe COAF has not been involved in, but if we do want to have a say in terms of how that impacts diversity and inclusion, that there's room for possible discussions and collaborations with other other similar groups within the state bar. And then, yeah, we'll just basically get something going on the content. So I think our plan to close out is we're going to work with Pat and Rod in terms of submitting the calendar, and then whatever state bar can do, to post it at their leisure. So.
I would think it'd be nice if we could move sort of sooner rather than later because of the deadlines coming up and because of the holidays on the issue of it would be great if there could be something, and I know it's the state bar website gets crowded, but when you call it up, I mean, I go on the state bar website all the time and I'm not even a member anymore. And to have something on there, apply for these committees or sections or whatever it is, and then have something on there so it's easy, again, just to make things easier for people to do. And
Yes.
the earlier that went in, the better, because of the fact that deadline's coming up so soon.
Yeah, just close out. Yeah, on the state bar website, there's a ticker of deadlines for paying your dues. And every year we always push for this, for how having applications be part of that, and the state bar has been very good at doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next to education MCLA. Who's reporting on education MCLA's?
I see you pointing at me, Mark. Excuse me. So we had an interesting conversation about a new-ish approach to MCLA programs, and I'm wondering, I would love input, about focusing or creating from existing resources an MCLE elimination of bias and really implicit bias education to the advisory committees of the Pathway to Law Schools and the California Partnership Academies, because those organizations and groups consist primarily of attorneys. And the advisory committee meetings last between 2 and 3 hours. And a lot of attorneys, and has been kind of a continuing theme today, exactly what is implicit bias. We had that discussion in our breakout sessions. And so we could take the opportunity when we have corralled anywhere from 15 to 40 lawyers in one of these advisory committee meetings, depending on if they are joint meetings of 2 different Pathway to Law School campuses or a Pathway to Law School campus and a partnership academy. I personally expect approximately 40, possibly more, lawyers at my advisory committee on January 31st. And so if we created an implicit bias MCLE program that is infused in that advisory committee meeting, because that's one of the reasons that these programs exist. The 2+2+3, the partnership academies, exist to increase diversity in the legal profession, which immediately links with implicit bias and elimination of bias. So we discussed the idea of going through the existing slideshow and then modifying that and possibly offering 1 unit of elimination of bias credit to the attorneys, of which there are many, who attend these advisory committee meetings and participate. So of course we would need approval, we would need input, and we just thought it would be an interesting approach and an interesting target audience to share the elimination of bias materials with. Do you have any comment, Mark or Donna? You participated. Was that it?
You got it.
Okay.
I don't know if you mean necessarily, isn't that still part of the
It's still
task?
part of the whole, yeah.
It feels like a task rather than a proposal.
Right, yeah.
But
Or an ongoing task?
An ongoing task.
And I had nominated
Emily.
Oh, right.
So he did volunteer me to do that. It already exists, and the presentations, some of it has been created by Pat Lee with regard to her curriculum that she shares with the education for implicit bias to our Pathway to Law School faculty and our Partnership Academy faculty. So just kind of cherry picking, so to speak, and putting together storytelling, statistics, data, and education all in one neat package for presentation to these various attorney-based groups. Bless you. So that's what we discussed, and I am happy to participate in creating something for presentation for your consideration.
I think that goes without saying.
Thank you.
But anybody else who would like to assist with that, please, you know, so we can talk to the people on this committee. And any questions? Anything anybody wants to raise on that issue? All right, thank you. That was an excellent. I think it's a wonderful idea. So the next two, the last two, are stakeholder forum and the newsletter. And on stakeholder forum, that is me. One of the things that Gary Roberts and I talked about at that meeting was what we're going to do now that there is no more annual meeting, and what we can do in terms of the stakeholder forum. And one of the things we talked about was the idea that CJA and the Conference of California Bar Associations, or whatever it's called, what used to be called the Conference of Bar Associations, I don't know what it's called anymore, are meeting at the same time in the same city in San Diego in, I think, November or October, one or the other. I have dates.
2018 CBA annual is in
September this year, yeah. So it's September 13th, I believe, through the 16th. That's what I've got on my calendar, yeah, for CJA. So, and also we should check out to see what's going on with the sections, whether the sections might be meeting together with that. Certainly if we had that kind of confluence of lawyers and judges, I think that would be a great place for us to have a program. And what we talked about was the idea of a program in which we would sort of synthesize all the things that we're doing, have a presentation that shows this is what Council on Access and Fairness is doing. Do it for an hour of elimination of bias credit. Talk about all the different programs. Make an appeal, for people to get involved. Have them, have things up on the screen that says, if you want to get involved here, go onto this, text this number or whatever, and tell us that, so that you can get people who are immediately involved with it. But talk about all the programs that we have, how it is that lawyers and judges can help with that. Do that again for an hour. Yes.
Can you also solicit them for donations?
Exactly. I would imagine that would be something that we would definitely do. And we wouldn't let them out of the door until but then have a small reception that hopefully we could get, fundraising could get somebody to finance the food. And I would think that if you had it together with CJA, not that we ever solicit as judges, we don't, but have the fact that it's together with CJA might be a draw for people who are interested in sponsoring this, because you're going to have a bunch of judges there. Okay, so we have that, and this is an all-purpose thing, and also we could also have information up there for going onto the wind tunneling site, and we could also do our awards there if we do that. So it's kind of an all-encompassing type of thing, and it brings in just about everybody and every single part of the council. But I think that it solves, if we're able to do this, I think it solves a lot of issues about the loss of our annual meeting reception and our annual meeting forum for stakeholders and for education. So that's my concept and Gary's concept, and so I think it's something that we can work on. I plan on giving a call to the president of the CJA, who's on my court, and floating that and seeing who I need to talk to about the possibility of doing that coordination. I also want to present that to people I know on Conference of California Bar Associations to see whether they might be interested as well. Maybe we can get a room so that, at a time slot, and also sort of a place on their program. So that's the concept from your stakeholder Committee. And then on newsletters, we have our next newsletter. Looks like it's pretty much filled up. But we need to get people from each committee onto the newsletter committee. So we're looking for volunteers. From early education committee, do we have a volunteer to be on the newsletter committee? Doesn't mean you have to write something. There's Mark. Mark is a volunteer. That's what, that's right. And College and Law School committee, do we have a volunteer for the newsletter committee before we volunteer somebody? And it, oh, good, hey, so.
Boy, that was hesitant.
We're all set. And before I said something like, everybody who's not here is now on the committee. So that's wonderful, thank you all. And, you know, it doesn't mean anybody has to, everybody's volunteer, so I don't have to convince anybody, but it's just a question of having sort of a point person so that we are able to coordinate the newsletter when it comes out. But people have been very generous with their time and volunteering to provide articles, and so it's not an onerous job. So thank you very much.
Can I suggest that you may want to have fundraising as a regular on the newsletter as well? I didn't mean me.
You raise your hand, you're in. Gary's on there, absolutely.
You also skipped our.
Yes, who else isn't here that we can do this?
You also skipped the fundraising committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why.
I mean, was that intentional or?
No. I think because we have a report from you before, but no, we need to hear what happened at your meeting. So, yes,
I think we actually had what I consider a very profitable and interesting meeting, and we really thought out of the box on a lot of different things that we can do. And I kind of had just a list of things we're going to look at, and I think will be good. One of them was to try to coordinate with the California Law Association as well at their annual meeting with the seminars, maybe do something, but it sounds like we're already talking to them and into that.
Working with people, I think
yeah.
that's the thing to coordinate.
But one of the other things is going to focus on compiling a list of diversity liaisons and partners from various law firms, bar associations, and corporations. I mean, the one that seems to jump out of us was Google on that. Try and focus on them as to what we can do with them, what they'll do with us, maybe get money from them, that type of thing. Some sort of sponsorships, which on the letters, we're going to try to rework the letter again and see if we can get that out early. But we're also going to try and do another letter focusing on the liaisons at the state bar, or the bar association, and the law firms, with an idea of trying to put together the terminology we're not sure on yet, but maybe a fellowship, an internship in the corporation or the law firm or whatever it is, and we have an event where the individuals, which we would try to focus on students from the academies or the 2+2+3 winning these internships or fellowships, and then have again, we're trying to see if we can get Lin-Manuel Miranda to be the key speaker at the event, and draw money from that the law firms or the corporations would be funding the internships and fellowships, but then we would get people to come to the dinners or the event and pay for it, and that's how we would try to get our money through that. I think that that's generally it. And, the web page is that for the law firms and the that are donating, and we would give them the ability to have their names on the COAF webpage of some sort. So that would be our recognition, that type of thing. Did I forget anything, Melissa, Esther?
I think we also talked about, somebody mentioned.
It's
Somebody mentioned a calendar. God, that would be fabulous, because then we could plug in, what we were talking about is having an iPad at a table where, because I was thinking of Emily's events. She had told us she was having 2 events. I thought, oh my gosh, we have to get her to have an iPad there with our Donate Now button, which I just looked at the State Bar website and I don't see it there. So that if we had a calendar, you all are doing all kinds of things and seeing all kinds of people and doing, wouldn't it be great if anytime any of you is at some event, our page was there with our Donate Now button? That would be just so darn easy. We did talk about that.
Yeah, we did, and I'm sorry, I forgot, because the iPad or the computer or whatever would have the page up, and this would be at the academy meetings, and the donations do not have to come from the lawyers. I mean, they can come from the parents of the students that are in these academies or trying or applying for them or whatever. So having the web page up so that they can just push the button and do whatever they want, donate right then and there, would be another source.
So this is, I guess, for both fundraising and communications. It would be awesome if there was a set of like 3 or 4 talking points that trustees could use when they go to these various events, when talking to the public about the mission of the bar, to be able to talk about COAF and, what are the 3 or 4 talking points about what COAF does and why they should care. And I will be speaking at the swearing in Pasadena, and so happy to mention COAF.
Can we have the computer set up there for the students and stuff that are the people that are being sworn in and the families with the donate page?
Well, we didn't even have a donate page yet. I just went on the State Bar website looking for a button that says Donate Now. I didn't see it.
Google involuntary donation, put in some keywords and it'll come up.
Well, but we would have it up already.
Yeah, if it's hard to get to.
Yeah. URL. No, we will have a, we'll just have a
Yeah, but it would be a great thing to have at the swearing in, because the parents are there, and I don't know whether the
They're
young...
happy, they're law school, the tuition is over.
Yeah.
But they're about to pay how many hundreds of dollars for the privilege? I don't know.
So they can give us 5.
$5.
Yeah,
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I don't know, I don't think asking parents or the students themselves right when they're being sworn in for funds is like the best. Because I think the students have just spent a lot of money taking the bar exam and there might be in between work, so I don't know if that's the best arena to ask for funds.
I just think it's an arena.
And it's we're not talking about a hard sell, you better do this or else we're not gonna let you get sworn in. But why not? Why not? Yes. We're gonna check off form on the swearing and signature page. But
Opt in or opt out.
That you can do this, and basically part of it is, if you're glad to be part of this profession and you want it to be more diverse and inclusive, then you can do this.
Yeah, it's just optional. It may not be the best, but it's a way. Who knows, we may end up getting $10.
And I think all of us need to be thinking about this in terms of anything that we're doing, any program we're doing, making sure that is front and center. We're always thinking in terms of that fundraising and what you can do to do that. When we have a program and you have an RSVP, you can have something on that says, and you can give to COAF to support its efforts. And just have, again, things that you can just click on and give are so much easier than it used to be when we had to, somebody had to write out a check and then put an envelope and get a stamp on it.
And I think whenever we have the iPad or whatever it is that we're going to have, I hope, at whatever CJA, wherever we are, we have to have something that tells people who we are. So maybe the letter, the fundraising letter, if we had a few copies of that, because people aren't just going to go hit a Donate Now button.
No, Generally, we're talking about things that are related to COAF.
Right, but I think
So
even
they
people
know
don't
what it is
know what
we do.
COAF is, so if we could have, we don't have like a little card that explains it, or maybe the fundraising letter, I don't know.
I think it's more of the types of things that Angela was showing us too, of pictures on the computer and the webpage, of just graphics and things like that, so they would just see that if paper gets lost. I've become very anti-paper things, so I think if it's right there and it's great graphics and it catches their attention, and a little bit of wording on it or something, that would probably do it as well. But this is all in progress, work in process.
A lot of very good thoughts. Thanks so much, Barry.
You can have some in your in the courtroom too when you.
That's right. Just here's a web, here's an iPad, and if you want to have your matter heard, then just.
Quick trip to the commission.
Yeah, but you're trying to see how to go to that little kiosk. Kiosk first and then.
Right next to the ATM.
On that one.
Just for anybody watching on that webcast, this is completely sarcastic. All right, everybody. All right.
CJP, this is.
Yes, CJP, yes,
Just
please, no. Both of us, no, we love it. So in any event, is there anything else anybody has that they want to raise, whether it's new business or anything relating to what we've been discussing? Anything here?
Just send all your notes, you know, if you could send them directly to me, or if you wanna clean them up first and send them, or you can fax them in so then I can compile everything.
Which she wants is.
Anything else from you, Donna? No? Anything else from you? All right, we are an hour ahead of schedule. I'm on a tight ship. Okay, so yeah, everybody get out before it starts getting crazy with all the various sports things that are going on. But anyway, thank you all for your participation. It's been a wonderful, very productive meeting, and have a great Thanksgiving. Everybody keep working, and we'll see you somehow or hear each other at the next meeting. Thank you.
Melissa? Are you guys against having a conference call, Kathleen? All of them do it. And